one more time for Ben Falcone. Let's hear it.
Hi.
Ben, thanks so much for being here.
I'm delighted to be here.
Congratulations on being a published author. You say in the book it was always a dream of yours to be a published author.
Yeah, it's weird.
Is it weird? Is it
It
weird
is, yeah.
because it's not a novel, it's not something fictitious, but it's actually like it's about your dad. It's very personal.
Yeah, it's I don't know what I expected to ever write, but probably this wasn't it.
How did this happen? Did you sort of start writing and then all of a sudden memories about your father came up and you thought, well, this could be a good book? Or was it something, a different process than that?
Well, I used to tell stories about my dad at parties and kind of get-togethers and sort of like a good-natured roast, really. And
He sounds like a fun guy.
he's a really fun guy. And so I used to do it like through the years, you know, started in my teens and sort of was like working on an act or something. And all the way through my 20s and then my 30s. And then finally I went home and I was like, you know, I'm not going to do that to my dad. I'm not going to like roast him at a party. And
I
then
should stop doing that.
I should stop. Oh, you do it too?
Yeah, of course.
So I was like, I should stop roasting my dad. And then we got home that night and he goes, hey, you didn't tell a story. And I was like, oh, all right. So what really happened was I decided to just start writing these things down and to give it to him as a Christmas present. Yeah, and then I sort of came up with a structure and gave it to a very loose form of this book for a Christmas gift.
Now you're a father of two young daughters,
That's right,
Two
two
young
girls.
How was it different for you being a father to two girls than being a father to two boys like your dad was?
Well, I've never been a father to two boys, so I'm not sure of exactly his experience. But I can tell you that being a father of two girls is wonderful, beautiful, and bizarre sometimes.
Bizarre how?
Well, they get into conversations sometimes, like Melissa, my wife, Melissa McCarthy, and the girls will be like, not so long ago, Vivian, my oldest daughter, said, and I quote, "Mom, I feel like my bedspread is competing with my wallpaper." And I was like, I gotta go.
Never has a conversation been less meant for me than the one that you're having right now.
And they were like, you know, they kind of spun it around for a while. Melissa was so excited and delighted, like a home conversation was happening with her daughters. Because then the little one starts going, I think it's competing too. I mean, it's completely competing. And so then my oldest daughter, being so sweet, she goes, she didn't want me to be left out. Dad, what do you think? Do you think it's competing? And I was like, I literally just agree with everyone, and I gotta go.
Now, this book about your father, you speak very lovingly of your father, and he's a very gregarious man, and I feel like most stories that people sons tell about their fathers are filled with anxiety or strife between the father and the son, and it doesn't feel like you and your father had that much of that at all.
No, I mean, you know, we had this disagreements or whatever, but he was you know, I think from a young age to my age now, I appreciated that he was just a good guy trying his best and, you know, like all of us, flawed, but he's really funny and he's good-natured and he tries. So I think I give points to anybody who tries.
And he was really one of the original stay-at-home dads. You talk about in the book. You know, he was sort of had a lot of odd jobs here and there until he was sort of gainfully employed. I think when you were 13 or 14. Yeah, right?
He came home and because he bounced around a lot. You know, he had a master's in English, and that wasn't in huge high demand. And I mean, so he was he ran the concessions at an arena. So I got like ice cream sandwiches and stuff. So I thought he had great jobs because I was like, oh whose dad brings home Coke and garbage bags full of popcorn? So I thought it was an amazing job. But I do remember he came home when we were like 13. He goes, boys, I got a job. And it was like a big deal. And we were all so excited. And he was a professor at a community college. That was the job he got. And my brother yells, we're going to be rich. And...
someone had to tell him it's community college.
Well, it's just he's going to be a teacher at a community college. We're not rich, but it's all right.
He will be working.
He will be working, and it'll be great. Yeah.
How do you think your father being a stay-at-home dad influenced you as a father getting older? Like, do you think it did?
I think it definitely did. I mean, you know, my mom was around a lot, but she had really long hours. She worked as a social worker. So, when my oldest daughter was born, you know, Melissa was working a lot, and I could not get arrested to find a job, you know, so...
what period of time was that in
It would be like
career-wise,
2007 or so, like, you know, We were having a really fun housing crisis at the time, if you'll recall. Yes. There was a giant strike in the writer's strike, so there was no job, to get. Melissa had been working a bunch, so in that time, I was really, just for a few kind of awesome months, that was all I had going, was just being Vivian's dad, which was truly an amazing time.
And what do you think? I mean, a lot is spoken about men and being stay-at-home fathers and it being an insecure thing. Do you think you had no insecurity over it whatsoever because you had seen your dad do it and it's a totally normal thing?
No, I mean, I definitely still had those feelings of like, my wife, makes more money than me. Oh, man. I'm like, you should be stoked, I think. But, I would go through like those things. But the fact that, my dad was a stay-at-home dad for some of my childhood, I think definitely kind of prepped me for the idea of like this. I mean, I still view it as like the most important thing that you can do is raise your kids. So whoever's doing that, whether it's the mom, the dad, or great nannies and babysitters, like all these people are doing the hardest and most important job.
One of the things you talk about that your dad taught you is that it's important to have a life with and outside of your kids as well, to sort of maintain your friendships and maintain going out and experiencing good times.
Yeah, it's and I do think that's important. I think a lot of us feel tremendous guilt, when we're working or something, and he didn't feel a lot of that. I mean, when he got his job, like as a professor, he was like, I got it, and I'm going to go to work, and I'm going to do office hours, and he was a great teacher, and I think the struggle helped him feel less guilt. Do you know what I mean? And I think in general he felt less guilt than parents today feel. And I do fight that all the time. I want to be like, it's okay to work. It's okay to like show your kids that working hard is good.
Well, you also talk about that you feel guilt because of how much you love what you do as well. There's something about loving what you do so much that also drives a certain amount of guilt.
For sure. I mean, I think that, I've had plenty of jobs that I did not enjoy, not naming names, but California Pizza Kitchen. And if were I still there, I am not because I was fired.
Were you really?
I was fired. They have secret shoppers that come in and they pretend to be customers, and I had an 8-top that got split into 4 separate tables, and the shoppers were the last ones sat. So I missed everything. There was like a series of rules. You have to come in this fast. You have to do this thing. You have to say like, "Where shrimp scampi pizza? It's a delicious, the delightful bay shrimp or whatever." And I got a 39 out of 100. I think I just said, "It's really good. I gotta go," or whatever. But if I had, were I still there, I don't think I'd feel guilt because I'd be like, look, I'm just trying, I'm at this place that I don't necessarily enjoy every moment. So I can't feel guilty about it because I'm just trying to do it.
How does that guilt affect your work? Because you and Melissa, in terms of writing and directing together, or you direct, but you write the films together, somewhat prolific in how fast you seem to have started to work once you've had the freedom to make these studio films that you've started. Does the guilt sort of drive you to work even harder?
The guilt drives me to get home faster. Melissa and I, we have a system where when we're working, we don't mess around. Like, I think people think, oh, you guys, it's just, and it is. We laugh, we have a great time writing together and, producing stuff together. But, like, when we get to our office, we finally have an office. We worked in our car for a long time.
Finally have an office?
We finally have an office.
Is that after the second film that you guys did together, you got an office? Or
yes.
Really?
Yes, because we were just like working in our house and like it was crazy. But when we do get together, like we're like, okay, and we start and we get going, and there's, in offices, I think, just because I've worked in some writers' rooms and stuff, there are like people are on Facebook or they're, shooting the breeze about this or like that. And with Melissa and I, we just have a shorthand because when we want to shoot the breeze, we want to be at home with our kids doing that. Right. So we're really kind of focused, and we probably do. People say, you guys work so fast, and it's like, yeah, because we want to get home.
And that drives it. That's so interesting that like, do you ever find that one of you starts messing around and the other one will be like, no, we want to save it for when we get back to the kids?
Stop it, we're going home. No, I mean, because I think both of us we've been doing it long enough that like we'll say something because also we're writing comedy, so we're trying to do bits and make each other laugh. But if someone does like a little bit, the other one will do one back, but then we just don't keep going forever. you know.
What is that? What is your process like in building the films that you guys make together?
Well, we write them together. A lot of times I'll do some of the more boring structural stuff, and Melissa will make it funny. But we write, every word together. That's a delight. And then, a lot of times I'll try to put together, it's crazy. But I try to put together like the budget or with help, and then Melissa just kind of can come in and be a little more like just with bigger decisions, because some of it gets pretty, like in directing too, it gets a little bit. It's very detailed, and it's just she doesn't have the time, and like if I'm already there doing it, I can just come in, and once the room of the set or the location is ready, I can be like, "What do you think?" And she's like, "Oh," and then she can be like, "Oh, could we do better curtains?" I'm like, "Of course we can do better curtains."
Curtains are competing with the bedspread.
The curtains competed with the bedspread.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of our process. We sort of like, concentrate in different areas, so like she's great with wardrobe. She has a fashion line. She's got a lot of skill in that way. I know if like I like what someone's wearing or not, so she kind of really heads the team that way. Or hair and makeup, she's so meticulous and great, and I'll just be like, your hair looks weird today, or like whatever, and that would just be my note, would be like, can we make it look, I don't know why,
less weird.
Yeah, so that's sort of how we delineate. And then, a bunch of the other stuff I'll kind of take the lead on.
And now you guys came from the Groundlings together, so you've always been sort of writing and performing together. That's where you met, right? And that's where most of your friends come from?
Yeah.
When it came to sort of making your first studio film, which was
Tammy,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I got that before you said it, although I did pause like I was waiting.
I was just helping. I was just right here for you.
What was that process like? Was it an idea that you then brought to the studio? Melissa sort of at that point had, for lack of a better word, enough clout to sort of get a studio film rolling with the two of you? Was that essentially the process?
We sold the script first, and that was all through Melissa, and it was a script that we'd been working on for a while.
Tammy is a very funny movie.
Oh, thanks.
Yes.
It was originally meant to be kind of an indie movie. I was writing like just little nuggets and drafts of it before people knew what Melissa could do, because I wanted people to know that, like, people knew she was funny, but at the time she was mostly just like a fast talking, like she was on Samantha Who and Gilmore Girls, and she was great on those shows, but like she was like, the fast talking kind of good natured friend, and I was like, she can do all these things. So Tammy,
she's amazing.
Oh, thanks.
Like, yeah.
I'm like taking credit for it. Thank you. That my wife is amazing. Thank you.
She's a performer that just always impressive across the board. Funny, always funny, but also just like, Jesus, I can't believe you can do that.
Well, I'm constantly amazed by what she's able to do, and I started with Tammy, and then she made it better, and we wrote it together with the idea of showing people what she could do. And by that time, Bridesmaids came out. So people kind of got a sense of some of the stuff that she was able to do. But then that's what got Tammy sold. So they bought it, and they didn't even know what it was. They just bought it with a log line. New Line did.
Really?
Yeah, and then...
but you had a script for the most part at that point. Yeah.
Right, well, the script was ready. So once they bought it, we said, here you go. This is the script that you heard one line about. And then Toby Emmerich and the guys at New Line that... I truly do love, and like Toby just got a big promotion. But it's great when good people are doing well. We met with a bunch of directors, and none of them could do it, or their availability dropped out, or I don't know if the deal couldn't get worked out, or what was happening. And so finally, our friend Tate Taylor had just directed The Help, and our friends Jim Rash and Nat Faxon had directed The Way, Way Back. And we were like, well, they did it. Could we? And so we pitched it as a co-direct, like, can Melissa and I direct this movie? And Toby said this great thing. He just goes, let me sleep on it. And to me, I was like, I didn't know Toby as well then, so I was like, it's a nice way of just saying, get out of my face. But he did sleep on it, and like a week later, he says, let's do it. Why don't you guys do it? And then due to like scheduling, like Melissa was shooting movies and trying to, really at a quick pace, and so she wasn't able to do all the things that the director, needed to do.
So what was I'm obsessed with directing and filmmaking, and I love the hardest parts of the process because I don't think it gets enough credit for how difficult a day of directing is.
It can be.
What was it like for you?
Well, directing Tammy was wild. My first days doing it, I was actually acting in it too. I was her mean boss, Keith, and why? Thank you. Like, a Keith fan out there. But yeah, so that was pretty odd because, I'm trying to think of all this stuff and I really am like new and, just doing my best and also acting in the scene and trying to like set Melissa up to be funny and to not be terrible, which is always my goal as an actor. Let's just not be terrible. So there was a lot going on, but we did this kind of really neat thing because I was paired with this great producer named Rob Cowan and this other great producer, Chris Henchy. And
Chris Henchy, who Gary Sanchez, right?
Yeah, super funny guy and a friend, and he's produced all our movies. And anyway, Rob set up the schedule, and he said, "Why don't we start on a Thursday?" And I was like, "What? Don't people start on Monday? I don't know. I'm panicking." And he was like, "No, let's start on a Thursday. That way, we'll do a couple days, and then you can have the weekend." And it was the most amazing thing to do for a first film, especially when I was in only the first 2 days, right? So then I was able to like act, do all that. Be scared and surprised, and I'm sure we were working slow, because I wasn't comfortable yet. And then for the rest of the movie, it was like, oh, well, now I don't have to act. Right. That's good. So he set it up in kind of a fun way.
How were you that weekend after the first 2 days?
I was, like so relieved. I'm like, I feel like the movie's over. And it was far from over, indeed. But it was, Tammy is, still kind of we've done 3 movies now, and I've enjoyed each one for a different reason, but it'll always be special.
Are you guys working on another one?
Yeah, we just finished another one.
You just finished shooting another one? Oh, fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, we're putting it together now. It's called Life of the Party, and it's a movie about a mom who goes back to college with her daughter. And it's really, really sweet. And that
sounds very the Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. It could be like, Back to School, which is is a great movie. Ours is, of course, a way different look at it, but definitely the same, sort of plot. And it's PG-13, which is kind of amazing, and it's sweet. Melissa's able to get so many laughs, so many ways, and I won't have to answer the questions when the junket comes around of like, how's it being married to the raunchiest woman in the world? And I'm like, she's not raunchy at all. She doesn't really swear at home. This is just something that sort of happened through.
Do you get questions like that when it comes to junkets?
Oh, constantly, yeah.
There is... everybody always asks the question of what's it like to be a woman in comedy, blah, blah, blah. We hear it all the time. It's kind of a cliche question at this point. But what nobody asks women in comedy is what is it like to be interviewed at junkets as a woman in comedy? Because I can't imagine a hotter hell than that.
Well, they have to answer the same sort of, if you really like step back and look at it, some of the questions are just I don't think anyone means them to be offensive, but it's just like it's a movie and it's got all women and it's funny. And you're just like, yeah, it's just a funny movie. And like the whole thing that Melissa and I try to do with those is like our movies have featured, obviously she's a woman, she's the main character. This one is, about her and her daughter's friends who are primarily women. So I'm sure I'm going to get the question a bunch more times, but. Or Paul Feig, a friend of ours, always gets questions of like, what's it like being a man directing movies for women? He's like, it's great. Women are funny, and I like the movies. And so it's just you try to like breeze past it.
It's such a strange thing. I've been in junket rooms for movies where I hear the other people talking about those questions. Like, how could you ask that question to these people to their face? I feel so bad asking that. I want to ask a question before we go to the audience. What is it like having Sean Spicer in the house?
It's spicy in my life.
Spicy in your life.
It's great. She keeps Spicer in New York, and we live in LA.
When did it come up that she was going to do that?
She was out here, and I was in post for the movie that we finished. So I was in LA with the girls, and it sort of came up like, maybe Tuesday or something, like whenever they were pitching. Our friend Kent Sublet had pitched it to her, and, she's like, do you think I should do it? I'm like, absolutely. Why not? It'll be fun, right? And she's like, yeah, I think it'll be fun and no big deal. And it just seemed like, I talked to her about those things a lot. Like there's a different sketch often. And this one I remember watching it on a Sunday morning in LA and just feeling like it was really funny. And I felt like an odd sense of relief that I was laughing. And I think maybe America, on whatever side of the political spectrum you are, I think maybe America kind of agreed with that sort of sentiment of like, oh, it's just fun to be laughing at this stuff that everyone's so, worked up about.
Did she talk to you at all about what the performance was going to be like and watching any sort of Spicer press briefings? I mean, I'm a press briefing junkie. And
are you?
Oh, I love them.
Yeah.
Especially
now.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's like whistles coming out of my ears and
Yeah.
heat coming up, but I love them. But did she watch and did she talk?
For sure. She watched a bunch of his, sort of, the first one he gave was, he was pretty strident. So
that was the one that was like, it was the biggest crowd, period.
Yeah.
No questions.
Yeah. So she watched a bunch of those, and then I think she just sort of, like she does, I think she, a bunch of it just became like, how can they transform her? The makeup and hair department there is amazing. I mean, they change her into Spicer in 15 minutes or less, which is insanity. In this last show, the last Spicer she did, I believe, I would have to double check, but it was under 6 minutes they had because of the way the show was going. So she went from like pretty Melissa to Sean Spicer in 6 minutes. So kudos to those guys because so much of it is just the physicality that she's able to embody because, they make her look kind of like him, in her own way. So it's been interesting to see her part of a political, piece of commentary like that's it seems to resonate with people. So it's been interesting for sure.
Well, yeah, I mean, your comedies for the most part have been fairly apolitical. I think The Boss maybe has a kind of class bend to it.
Sure.
But it's for the most part they're fairly apolitical comedies. What is it like to have your wife sort of throw her hat into the ring, even though she's just being funny and doing a sketch? Her hat is kind of into the ring right now.
Yeah. No, I mean I think she's a really kind person, and she would tell you she probably leans to the left, right? But I think primarily she just wants people to be nice to one another, and I think that being a part when everything is just, it's like everything is just going so quick right now, and it's always in a news cycle, and I think she just concentrates on the funny part, and then if there's something that comes up, like he's in the bushes or whatever, they'll do it, and you knew that they were going to do it. But it's just fun, I think, for her to get to play a character where, like, literally she gets to throw a pillar at a woman and say, "I hope to God I killed her." Like, that is just a fun thing for Melissa to get to do, period. So, every movie she wants to hurt me. Like, she threw burgers at my face. She hit me with a tennis ball, which I was like, "Oh, we can put that in post." And she goes, "No, let's do it with a real tennis ball." And I'm like, "Why? Like, I can put it in post. I've been told that it's going to work perfectly." She goes, "Well, let me just." And she literally whacked a tennis ball like 2 feet from my head. And I was like, "No, we're not doing that." She's like, "I just wanted you to feel what that might be like." So the idea of hurting me has always. Maybe that's how the marriage stays happy. She hurts me on a set.
Let's get some questions from the audience. Who has questions out here? Right there.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, I'm good.
I was wondering, how long did it take you to write this book? And where did you find time between career and kids stuff?
That is a good question. I wrote it before not this holiday, but the last holiday, because I gave it to my dad as a sort of a crudely bound version. That's the editors at HarperCollins did a great job, so it's not the same. It's raw, more raw. But I wrote it basically in about a month, and it was during a time that was super busy for Melissa. And the kids were in school, and I didn't really have anything to do, and I've been kind of bumping around with these stories in my mind. So one day at the office, I just started to write one of them, and I think I sort of that very day. I mean, I would spend. It wasn't like I spent so much time because I can be bizarrely focused. I go from completely not focused, what are we doing, to I can maybe write a lot in 2 or 3 hours. So it was like little sections like that, and then it was done because it's not a tremendously long book. Once I figured out the structure between the juxtaposing my dad and me versus me and the girls and Melissa, it was sort of easy-ish. I don't want to say it was easy to write because sometimes dredging through memories, even happy ones, makes you feel weird. At the end of the day, I'd be like, am I depressed or something? And one of my friends was like, no, you're writing about your childhood. You're dredging up memories that none of us, think about that much. And I was like, oh, maybe that's what it was, Even though it was, for the most part, good stuff.
Next question.
Hi. So this is kind of a follow-up question to that, but like, since this being your first novel that you've written, like, did the writing process kind of come naturally to you? Like, how was that process like for you?
Well, I write for a living, dialogue and stuff, and one thing that I've noticed, because I've written a couple TV shows that didn't go, and what I've noticed for me anyway is that, they say write what you know, and I take that even farther, is that I literally steal what I know, and things that actually happened or whatever. So for me, this, whether, there's a TV show, Nobodies, where literally my three friends, Larry, Rachel, and Hugh, play themselves, or an exaggerated version of themselves. And I think that's what makes it, to me anyway, so funny. And Melissa and I play weird versions of ourselves, crazy versions of ourselves.
Congratulations on that show as
thank
well.
you,
It just
thank you.
premiered this year, right?
Yeah. And they're super funny. But so anyway, so this is kind of an extension of that sort of philosophy anyway right now, which is like, well, if I was going to, it might have been really hard for me to, if the book started out with, Franny woke at dawn. She looked at the sun, and, as the robots came from the sky, I'd be like, oh, crap, how do I do this? But this was just more literally putting things down from my life. And, the words, they may be a little different or some things a little bit heightened, but they're based on reality. So the process was, it was almost more like a documentary than a made-up thing,
I think we have time for one more question.
Hey, Ben.
Hi.
So I was wondering, how much did your dad kind of encourage you to go into your career in comedy or writing? And did you work with your brother at all while making the book?
Oh, good question. My dad has always been super encouraging. My brother is a writer. He's written these really cool books that we're working on getting published. It's a tricky world out there. But my dad was encouraging because I finished college, sort of as an homage to my parents, because they both were they're very educated and it's important to them. So I wanted to finish for them and also for myself, because I'm a late bloomer by nature. I was like, what am I going to go out and I'm just going to bomb, because I wasn't equipped. Like, I needed to go through college just to kind of grow up a little bit. But my dad was incredibly encouraging. He was like, you're funny, give it a try, see what happens, whatever. And then he gave me money when I was broke, which was always... so he was incredibly encouraging. And yeah, I did ask my brother tons of stuff about, am I missing something? And, what was that like? And he's like, no, I think you're pretty... He actually said a nice thing. He goes, I'm not sure I'm as noble as you make me out to in the book. But I think he is. So yeah, he's been really helpful in that regard, too, because he's a great writer, and he would kind of help me, look at some stuff and look at their shape. And I think he's a better writer than me, so it's nice to have somebody who can weigh in like that.
Ben, it's a wonderful book. Is it on shelves right now? Can people?
It is. It came out today.
On shelves. I guess it's like on shelves somewhere, but also just go to Amazon.
Yeah, also just go to Amazon. It's been there forever.
There are very few shelves left anymore.
Yeah.
It's called Being a Dad is Weird, Lessons in Fatherhood from My Family to Yours. Ben Falcone, everybody. Ben, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.